What is up, guys? Sorry for the double upload today. I know this is Silver Tempest release week, so I'm doing the whole 2 weeks of deck profile and gameplay every day, and kind of cuts into our competitive content a little bit, even though it is pretty competitive. But the Warsaw Regionals just happened over in Poland? Poland. And it had 722 players, and we saw Pedro Eugenio Torres take the regional down with his Lost Box deck. Congratulations to Pedro. We saw Alex Szymanski in a very close series lose with his Giratina V-Star deck. But this was our final send-off tournament for Lost Origins, so I wanted to recap it as quickly as possible for you guys. Look at the top 8 decks that have been put up so far. 2 decks have not been put up, but we're going to look at the ones that are already up so we can see where the Lost Origin format ended from where it began. And basically showing that this is one of the most diverse formats we've had in a long time, with 6 different archetypes sitting in the top 8, which doesn't typically happen towards the end of a format when it's quote-unquote solved. So let's look at Pedro's winning deck list. Now, Tord Reklev already won a regionals this season with Lost Box, but this is a little bit fundamentally different because it's playing a copy of the Magma Basin to power up the Radiant Zard. There is a Drapion and a Zigzagoon in this list as well. The Zigzagoon giving us more numbers, especially when we're Echoing Horn trying to close out the game with like a scoop up net. Echoing Horn plays a Drapion V to just shore up the Mew matchup. I mean, it is probably the worst starter in the deck, but it's really simple. Just don't start it. It's that easy. There's 2 copies of Clara, 1 copy of Marnie, and a copy of Roxanne for the late game. And we saw how the Roxanne actually did win Pedro the set in the finals. Roxanne is an insanely good card, especially when paired with Path to the Peak. 1 copy of Pokegear to kind of dig for the pieces that Pedro is missing. But this list is very consistent, very straightforward. And I like it. It's very good, and this version of Lost Box or Lost Box in general will continue to be good moving into the Silver Tempest format. So when you guys are looking at established lists moving into the next format, keep in mind there are championship winning lists. There are lists that are doing very, very well, and you just have to think about how to adapt to the new strategies that are coming out in the Silver Tempest set. One of which being Lugia, obviously, but you just have to look at those new strategies and adapt the winning lists already. You don't have to come up with something brand new. That's one mistake I see players make all the time. In second place, we had Alex Szymanski's Giratina V-Star list, playing in the 2-3 Giratina with Drapion as well to deal with the Mew VMAX decks. Got the copy of Thornton to kind of get to those fun attackers. A copy of Collapse Stadium over something like the Temple of Sinnoh. Alex decided that I guess he does not need to care about the wash energies for this tournament, playing heavy copies of Escape Rope, the Ordinary Rod, all the good cards that I think you typically would expect in a Giratina V-Star deck. The Lost Vacuum to deal with the big Parasols that could pop up here and there in a deck. A thick grip of energies with only 1 capture. But besides that, the deck makes sense. Every card here is pretty stable for a Giratina deck, and I think this is the final evolution of the Giratina deck. Giratina will continue to be popular in the Silver Tempest format, so please keep an eye out for that. It will be good. Coming in at third, we had Patrick Landis with their Kyurem VMAX deck. Kyurem VMAX is probably the most consistent deck in the Lost Origin format. The power level is not necessarily the highest because once you set up, it's like, what do you do from there? But it is the most consistent, in my opinion. It sets up the most. It gets to what the deck wants to do the most compared to every other deck in the format. And something interesting about Patrick's list, they're playing 3 Collapse Stadium instead of like a heavier court count or something else. The 3 Collapse Stadium, I think, act as a healing card in this instance to just kind of, when you retreat your Kyurem, retreat the Palkia, retreat the damaged Empoleon, for example, you can bump it off the board. 1 copy of Wash Energy to deal with the Giratina V-Star deck. And basically everything else kind of makes sense to me. 4 Melanie, 3 Irida, 2 Boss of Roxanne, 1 copy of Empoleon to, I guess, stop Lost Box in their tracks, more or less. But I feel like the 1 copy is a little bit... maybe it's for Reggie's, because Reggie's doesn't play Boss. And doesn't play Ropes. So I guess it's probably for Reggie's, because against Lost Box, if you don't play 2 Empoleons, they're playing Ropes, and Tina's playing Ropes. So this Empoleon will never really stick in the active spot. And then in fourth place, we had Jory Coot playing their Palkia V-Star deck. A very stock standard Palkia. It looks very, very similar to the list that James Cox played for the World Championships. But instead of playing the Tool Jammer, there's a Big Charm in this list, sporting the Crabominable that, took James to a top 4 finish at the World Championships. Jory took himself to the top 4 of this regional championships with this Crabominable as well. Playing 3 copies of Quick, 3 Incense, 1 Level Ball, an Echoing Horn to close out the game as well, 3 Nats, 4 Switcher. Very stock standard list with the Quick Shooting as well to fuel the Crabominable and the Choice Belt. A very decent Palkia V-Star list. Palkia has been 57 to 59 cards the same, or 57 or 56 to 57 cards the same since NAIC with Isaiah Bradner's second place finish, and the deck has only shifted a little bit from here and there. Going into the Silver Tempest format, it will have to adapt once again to deal with the powerhouse that is Lugia, as we've talked about, and there might be some more lightning attackers with Reddy or LAKEY that could collateral this Palkia V-Star deck, unfortunately. So maybe Palkia stays, maybe it stays its tier 1, maybe it doesn't, we'll see moving forward. And then we have Lucas Calza's Arceus Giratina Pikachu deck, which is meant to hit all those matchups. It has the Giratina powerhouse in there. It's got the Arceus with the Trinity Nova attack, the Trinity Charge, and the Starbirth. Just kind of set up your board every single game. You're never getting to the Star Requiem with Giratina, so just the damage is what matters. There's no additional damage modifiers in this deck like a Choice Belt, so hitting into that 310 is difficult. So Mew should, I think, in theory, have been a difficult matchup, but there's 3 Path and 4 Marnie. So the Path, Marnie strategy, and Prey is an age-old strategy, and it's worked. It worked for Azul winning NAIC. It worked for the ARC Pika players who finished well at Worlds, all 3 of them in the top 3. So the strategy works. A 1-1 Pika line, very thin, no way to fish out of the prizes, and a 1-1 B Barrel line to kind of draw your cards, no way to fish out of the prizes. 3 copies of Colors' Experiment, which is really interesting in a list like this, because you don't typically want to discard cards or like want to put them in the lost zone. Like, you want to be either researching or Marnieing every turn, I think. And playing the Colors is a little bit interesting because I guess you can fetch what you need without discarding all of the resources in your hand. So that's a really cool innovation with this list specifically, because typically those 3 Colors would be the research, and that's kind of where the dichotomy of the list comes in. I don't know if it's good. I've never tried it. It's the first time I'm seeing it personally. But I mean, if they were able to, if Lucas was able to get this deep into the tournament, making it all the way to the top 8, then, I mean, there's some merit to this. There is some merit. I just also realized there's no Mew in the top 8, which is a good... like, while Mew is, like, on the downside in the Lost Origin format because of the amount of Drapion, Fusion Mew does get much better going into the Silver Tempest format. I have a Decklist profile for the new Fusion Mew with the Earthen Seal, or Forest Seal Stone, so check that out. It does get much better. And then we have Alexander Rutowicz playing their... yeah, you're not seeing this wrong. It's Palkia Vikavolt. I think Star Portal is only the Water-type Pokemon, right? Yeah, it's only the Water-type Pokemon. So this version is just focusing aggressively on getting the Melanie onto the Vikavolt V using your Radiant Greninja to discard. I feel like Radiant Greninja's prize, you're in a lot of trouble. There is a Zapdos to give us the extra 10 damage with the Lightning Symbol ability. I'm not entirely sure what mat that fixes off the top of my head, but... this is a very strong deck. No Cape of Toughnesses, so this is going for a more aggressive approach to item locking in the early game until our board is set up where our Origin Form Palkias can kind of come in, take one-shots, maybe even go into the Radiant Greninja. I don't know. Like, we have all these options available to us, but there are 4 speeds, 1 basic lightning, and 6 waters, so you're kind of relying on getting those watchers into the discard very quickly, and then playing the game from there. With 4 copies of the Celebrations Mew and Scoop Up Nets, you can move around those pieces very quickly, and Tracking Shoes also helps you get energy into the discard and dig through your deck quicker. So it's a little bit of a one-dimensional aggro deck, kind of like the OG Turbo Palkia deck that popped up over in Australia, but we're adding an element of Lightning type attacker, and this kind of a deck could continue to do very well in the Silver Tempest format because Vikavolt is very strong. Lightning types are very, very strong moving forward with the birth of Lugia V-Star. So that is our Warsaw top 8 decks. We are missing 2, of course, but congratulations to all the top 8 finishers and everyone else who performed well at this tournament. That does close out our Lost Origin format, and we are heading to Silver Tempest. Let me know what you guys think, what you guys will think will happen at LAIC in the comments below. Bold predictions. I mean, I'll do a meta-analysis heading into LAIC as well, but I want to hear your bold predictions about the first Silver Tempest International Tournament. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.